Hi, this is Monty Reed with ThriveLife, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about calcium. Just for some of you who don't know, I wanted to share with you that I've been honored to be recognized as a NASA Space Grant Scholar, and that was a few years ago, and I was a student at the University of Washington, and I was on a self-directed program studying what I call biosynthetics, and I got to work for NASA at the University of Washington. And in the field of biosynthetics, in addition to my studies, I was a teacher's assistant in a biology class. So we got to teach about muscles quite a bit. And within the biosynthetics is the study of living systems and building working copies for engineering, rehabilitation, medicine, and robotics. And my focus was on muscles used as motors. That's right. Living muscle tissue connected with synthetic materials and microcontrollers to fire and use the muscles as motors. And so studied quite a few different types of muscles. Started with basic chicken and beef, and then moved over to shark muscles, and found that the shark muscles seemed to be most functional and had the most endurance as far as continued use. Some of the previous research that I had studied, that other people had done, had to do with animating explanted muscles from frogs, and I did some animation of some chicken and poultry. Basically, I purchased at the grocery store, as well as some beef roast, sliced off some bits of muscle and animated those using electrodes, and found that after so many animations, the muscle tissue dies off because of the lack of calcium. You know, a lot of the simple research is done to animate freshly explanted muscles that got calcium on board, and so it's easy to animate. But when you look at the actual function of muscles and the way they work, when they get the electric signal from the nerves to activate, it's actually a electrochemical signal. So the nerves, the signal arrives at the surface of the muscles, and it's not just electricity, not just electric impulse, but there's actually a chemical impulse as well. So it's electrochemical signal that arrives, telling the muscles to fire, and there's these fibers that you can see under magnification. It's amazing, whereas basically they look very much like the hook and pile that you see on Velcro, where the myosin fibers and actin fibers literally grab each other and pull towards each other. That causes the muscle contraction. There's a lot of details I could get into, but I'm going to try to paraphrase and keep this simple to understand. That and any bioengineers watching this or listening to this, you might want to cover your ears and just go la la la, because I'm probably going to say some things that don't make a lot of sense. But like I said, I'm trying to make this recording for the average Joe or average Joanne out there who doesn't have a PhD in bioengineering, so that you can just understand a little bit about the mechanism of operation of muscles. So from your basic elementary school or high school biology, you would know that electric stimulation causes those muscles to activate. But in reality, that electrochemical signal arrives on the from the nerves, and then the muscle actually calls on calcium ions, calcium actually from the bones. And so the muscles will actually use the nearby bones as a calcium storage tank. And it literally dissolves a minute amount of calcium from the local bones, and that becomes calcium ions, and they actually pump through the muscle cell, and the muscle fibers and fibrils will contract because of the myosin and actin fibers. And after the contraction, then the calcium ions will pump back to the bones. And again, as I mentioned, it's an extremely simplified explanation, but literally the muscles need the electric stim, they need protein for rebuilding and repairing, they need fuel. The ATC it's a type of fuel, basically on the cellular level, kind of call it like fuel or gasoline. It's basically the body converts food into this fuel. So this fuel is used on the cellular level. And of course, the muscles also need the calcium from the nearby bones. And so in order to grow muscle tissue and use it as a motor, you have to have some bones nearby. So you have to, when you grow the muscles, you actually have to grow the bones too, because the muscles need to be able to tap into the bones. And I've tried with synthetic lattices and bone tissue to basically create a storage tank. Haven't been able to create a synthetic version of that yet. We're still working on it in the lab. It's kind of fun. But for now, the research is angling towards having some bones nearby as part of the strut or structure of the robot system where we're using the muscle motors. So back to human anatomy and human needs. One of the things that we know from current science is that the magic age for women and calcium is age 24. Now, based on genetics or diet, environment, and maybe injury, illness, or even abuse, a lot of women, younger teenage women, will abuse their bodies with anorexia or not, just not eating proper amounts of food, so they're depriving their body of the fuel that they need. So, and the reason I mention that is because if you don't take care of your body, and your genetic age 24 was actually 24, it could be reduced to age 18. And what that means is most women need to have consumed all of the calcium for their lifetime before age 24. Now, because of genetics, the way you chose your parents, and some other factors, it's quite possible that magic age 24 could be as late as 32. Some people may continue to consume or absorb calcium their whole life, but on average, most women need to have consumed a full lifetime's worth of calcium before age 24. And as I mentioned, due to genetics and possible injury, illness, or abuse, it's possible that some women will have needed to consume all their calcium before they turned 18. So my advice to you, recommendation to you, is that you get 2 cases of Thrive Freeze Dried Blueberries, because it is one of the highest sources of natural calcium that is quickly bioavailable. That means that when you put it in your mouth, you consume it, that calcium can be absorbed by the body almost immediately. And that if you know any women, any young ladies in your life that you love, if they're a wife, a child, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, any woman that you know or young lady that you know in your life that's 24 years old or younger, that you need to purchase 2 cases or 12 cans of the Thrive Blueberries, because that will provide, if that woman will eat all of those blueberries within a year. Basically, the suggestion, because I'm not a doctor, I can't prescribe it, but the suggestion would be that every woman that you know would eat 1 full gallon of blueberries every month for a 12-month period, so that their body can absorb that calcium, and they'll have that available for their bone density and also for their muscles to use. And another interesting thing that we've done is, in my research, I do a lot of work with paralyzed people and geriatric or elderly people, because the other bit of my research that I've spent the last couple of decades following is how to improve mobility for paralyzed and partially paralyzed or mobility impaired people. I've been working on that project since 1986. And so I'm very excited about the progress we've made, very excited about the Life Suit robotic exoskeleton, and it's been very exciting. And along the way, I have met young men who are age 24. They were paralyzed at 19, and so as little as less than 5 years later, these men suffered from osteoporosis, where their bones were so weak and brittle that they had suffered multiple fractures. One gentleman had multiple fractures that would not heal, and also faced bone infections at the multiple fracture sites, and that resulted in massive amounts of antibiotics, and that causes all kinds of problems because it kills off the good bacteria as well as the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the problem is that you need to introduce flora and fauna, basically probiotics like from the Thrive yogurt bites. So there you go. There's another opportunity to help with blueberries to provide calcium, and then the yogurt bites to provide calcium, and the probiotic cultures that are needed for digestion. And so what we've seen, and this was verified by NASA, there was a study done by some research astronauts, and they noticed that the bone density and muscle mass, but primarily bone density, of the lowest ranking people on any of the space missions. The lowest ranking people had lost the most bone density and the most muscle mass, and the highest ranking people had maintained the most bone density and muscle mass. And at first it looked like, wow, I guess we just, NASA did a great job picking the best people to be in charge, because they're obviously physically more fit and superior. But the reality is, when they looked at the exercise logs, they found that the higher ranking personnel on the space missions were allowed to bump the lower ranking people who were trying to exercise. And the reality is the exercise was the key. And if you look at the exercise logs, and they looked at exercise logs from space missions over a decade, and found that whoever spent more time on the treadmill had maintained more of their muscle mass and bone density. And because of that, led to some other studies that were done. Purina sponsors a research conference in veterinary science, and I used to do a lot of research with horse health, basic horse wellness. I did that for a decade. And at one of the conferences that I went to, there was a researcher that bred horses and basically raised the babies on concrete. And a lot of folks said he was crazy. If you tried to do it in the United States, it would have never flown. But his hypothesis was that if the horses live their entire lives on concrete, that their bodies are amazing and that they would adapt. And he was right. These horses that were raised and spent their entire lives on concrete, their bone density was almost twice that of a normal horse of the same breed. And shocking and amazing that he had multiple families of horses. I think it was over 30 horses that he raised on concrete, and their bone density was extreme. Their muscle mass was stronger as well. But the thing we've seen with paralyzed folks and also the elderly is when they stop exercising, the muscles stop using the calcium and then in the bones, and so the body says, we don't need the calcium, so let's get rid of it. So the bones get thinner, and also because they're not exercising, they get weaker. And the body says, this calcium is heavy, let's dump it. And so literally inactivity, within a few weeks, the body starts dumping calcium, and the bone density gets weaker and weaker, thinner and thinner. It's very difficult to put that calcium back on. So that's why whenever you get a person paralyzed through a stroke or injury or whatever, as soon as possible, you want them exercising. And that's why the LifeSuit robotic exoskeleton is so amazing and powerful, because you can have basically, as soon as someone is stable and it's safe for them to move, they can be exercising 3 to 7 times a week. They could literally exercise 7 days a week, and because the machine moves them around. So just wanted to share that a little bit with you. Again, back to if you know have any women in your life age 24 or younger, you need to buy 2 cases of the Thrive Blueberries. This is Monty Reed for Thrive Life. Have a great day.
I prefer Thrive. Keep thriving, my friends.